You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos, part of the Stake in the Plains Content Network, and the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. Just a couple of casino caballeros talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro, live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio.
Welcome into the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. Live in the Cardinal Sports Center studio. If you need to gear up for the Houston game, you can gear up at Cardinals. You know what? You can also get Gambling Gauchos merch at Cardinals. You can get, let's see. Well, you can't get that hat yet. You know what? We should get those hats on the market. RTDB, Rud the Dadgum Ball. We'll talk about that today in the episode. But you can get the black Gambling Gauchos hat. You can get the white Gambling Gauchos hat. You can get a quarter zip. You can get the red It's All West Texas shirts. Lots of options. I believe the black Gambling Gauchos shirts are also restocked. So go buy Cardinals. Get you some Gambling Gauchos merch. And some Texas Tech merch. Even though they lost again. Still riding with the team. I guess. What else we have? Oh, with the Republic of Texas football. You can go there online, mycardinalsports.com, or in person right outside the loop on Slide Road. How you doing, Kyle?
I've seen some buzz about those quarter zips.
Waiting for the weather to change.
That's all we need.
I need a cool week. Nathan says nice hats, even though I'm not wearing one. He must think my forehead's nice. Nice hat, Kyle. That is a nice hat. We almost got those hats in every Big 12 color this offseason.
We could still do that, maybe. Well, we've got new teams now to get colors for. Because I think that was before the four corners and all that.
That was with the current 14. No, we'll have to have it for the future 14. 16. Oh, good grief. The pick'em segments in the non-conference next year are going to be so brutal to get through. 16 games.
We might have to choose like a top 10 for everything. Because I was thinking that with like the uniform rankings. I did that this year. I was like, you know what? We're just going to do top 10 because 14 is too many. Even though we leave Texas and OU off every week. But 16 teams that aren't Texas and OU, it's like too much for a full list of everybody's TV ratings, everybody's spread, all that.
Here's a great question to get us started. Is 111 on the table? Kyle, is 111 for Texas Tech on the table?
It's theoretically possible, but no, I'd put it at a very low likelihood. Although I thought
fraud alert.
That was loud.
That was.
Although I thought 1-3 was like, I could have seen 2-2 because you had two road games. You had a really tough home game. I didn't think 2-2 was really going to happen, but you could have probably sold me on it that there's a 35-40% chance that you would start 2-2. 1-3 was like, had you asked me before the season, I would have said, oh, there's a 5% chance that you start 1-3. So, I mean, you're really bad on offense, and I'm sure we'll have time to talk about some of that, but I don't think you'll go 1-11.
No, you still have Houston and Baylor to play. I think those two are winnable, but BYU and Kansas are going to be two tough games on the road. UCF, Kansas State will be two tough games at home. TCU, I think, will be a tough game. I'm pretty down, Kyle. I've had a down weekend.
I think a lot of people are there.
All right, you want to get into the game?
Sure.
Texas Tech, West Virginia finishes 20-13. We both thought it would be a low-scoring, ugly game, but it was even uglier than I imagined. And what's crazy is you scored first. West Virginia punt, Texas Tech punt. Then you had an interception basically in field goal range. 6 plays, 1 first down later, you get a field goal. thank goodness Markiel threw a couple times, or else this game would have been a lot different.
Yeah, and some of the preview discussions we had, I don't remember if it was on our podcast or one of the ones that we joined from some West Virginia content creators, but I said that this was going to set up like the Wyoming game, just ugly. You want to get in a position where you have to make them throw, and I don't know how many times Markiel threw, but you picked off 2 of them. He couldn't have thrown more than 15, 20 passes. I'm going to pull up the box score because we're going to have to reference it anyway.
He was 12 of 21.
Okay, so you picked off 10% of his passes. That's brutal. Wish you could have done a lot more with those 2 turnovers. One of them was in the red zone, so you kind of directly saved points, and then the other one you return into field goal range and go 3 and out. But yeah, it was this hideous, ugly game, just like Wyoming. Both offenses looked like they sucked. It was Wyoming without the 17-0 start. You were just kind of in this ugly, weather-impacted slog for 60 minutes, and they scored one more time than you did, and you were never able to get through it. I think my score prediction was 27-24 West Virginia. Winds up being 20-13. But man, that's not a style of game that I think you want to play. I mean, you're an offensive identity that is tempo, spread them out. It's a finesse game plan. And then when you're up in altitude or it's raining and you're just playing this ugly, grinded out kind of game, you're clearly not built to win that style of game. You're 0-2 now. And I thought those 2 games mirrored each other really almost identically. So clearly we're not good at that style of play.
And what's crazy is in Joey McGuire's opening press conference, in which everything has come true except one statement, his offense, hey, we're going to play defense here. Yeah, well, you're doing it. We're going to win. You won last year. You were the best record you've had since 2009 last year. I know you're 1-3 this year, but that came true. We're going to recruit. We're going to recruit West Texas. You've done those things, but you haven't played complementary football. This is not complementary football. Tempo all the time and going 3 and out all the time is not complementary football. So the hire didn't make sense to me of Zach Kelly, and I keep hearing how adaptable he is, but you've not adapted this year at all.
No. Well, you did in the second half. Taj Brooks had 22 carries in the second half.
Sure.
And even that was playing an entire half of football, that style, which is great, was too little too late. He winds up with 25 carries, and if you just glance at the box score, they tried to run the ball. Kind of. You see 38 carries to 43 pass attempts. That should probably be flipped minimum. But when you have your bell cow, your number 1 running back, carrying the ball 3 times in the first half, fewer times than your quarterback whose leg snapped in half before the end of the first quarter, that raises all kinds of red flags for me. How does your number 1 running back, who is just getting off a 2-game stretch where he averaged something ridiculous like 7 yards per carry, how does he have fewer carries than a guy who didn't even play a full quarter and whose leg snapped in half? That is such an indictment on the play calling, the scheme, the game plan going in. It is truly just mind-boggling, and I have no explanation or justification for it. Usually I can find an angle and say, you know what, even if I disagreed with the call here or there, I can see what they were thinking. This is like kicking a field goal on second down level of I'm at a loss. I have no idea what we're thinking.
There's a question here, Rob. If I gave you a blind jersey test, would this team feel exactly like a Matt Wells coached team? That felt like a Matt Wells game a little bit. I still point to recruiting, and I point to off the field stuff, and I point to how many young players you have, not transfers, even though you do have a couple of transfers playing. You do kind of feel like it's Yost era offense. I mean, it's a bad offense. Listen to this first half. Punt in 3 plays, 3 yards. Field goal in 6 plays because you got the ball in field goal territory. Punt in 3 plays minus 2 yards. Punt in 3 plays, 4 yards. 4 downs, 4 plays, 4 yards. And then end of half, 2 plays, 20 yards. 3 yards and a half. 3 points and a half.
It's terrible.
Somebody texted me, is this the worst half since ... since you got shut out against Oklahoma State? It was that level.
Yeah, and I mentioned this on the last podcast, how sick I am of, in my game notes, writing 3 and out, no handoffs. And I finally went back to tally that. But before I get there, those drives you just referenced, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were either 3 and outs or 4 and outs with no handoffs. I'm counting a 4 and out when you go for it on 4th down instead of punt.
Sure.
The 2 times that you handed the ball off, one of them was the only drive in the first half where you got a first down. I'm throwing out the end of half sequence. You go to Taj on 1st down. He gets 5 yards. That's what he does. 2nd and 5, you throw to him in the flats, and that's how you earned your only first down of the first half. The second time you handed the ball off, you still go 3 and out, but the handoff gets you to 2nd and 6, and then you go incomplete pass on 2nd and 6, incomplete pass on 3rd and 6, and punt. Had you handed the ball off on 2nd down, you're probably, at the very least, in 3rd and short, where you can run it again or throw a higher percentage pass. It sounds like an oversimplification. Run the damn ball, and it's this cliche, it's this meme. Every way I've sliced this, that is what it all comes back to. So these 3 and outs, let me see if I can find it in these notes. Okay, against FBS competition, so I'm throwing out the Charlton game. Texas Tech has gone 3 and out or 4 and out 10 times, so more than 3 times per game. On just 3 of those 10 drives, Texas Tech has handed the ball off, period. On just 2 of those 10 drives, Texas Tech has handed the ball off to Taj Brooks. There was one sequence, I guess, against Wyoming. You handed off to Cameron Valdez and still went 3 and out. But he's not your number 1 running back. If you do count the Tarleton State game, an FCS opponent, it's 12 3 and outs or 4 and outs, and 4 of those drives involved a handoff. So just a quick glance to tell you, if roughly you're not quite running the ball half the time, but if it's roughly a 50-50 split and way more than half of your 3 and outs involve not running the ball on any of the 3 plays or 4 plays when you go 4 and out, that should give you some kind of indication. I think we're at the point in the season, 4 games in, a third of the way through, you've got a pretty sizable sample size. 1 or 2 games you can kind of say, well, maybe it was a weird game and the game sequence dictated that you do this or that. We're 4 games in, and your best drives involve handing the ball off. Your worst drives involve just an absolute refusal to do that. Here's the other one that I literally lost sleep over. I was tossing and turning at 2 a.m. thinking about this. Against West Virginia, you had 11 drives. Again, throwing out the end of half sequence, 11 full possessions. On about half and half, 6 of those drives, Taj Brooks carried the ball either 1 time or not at all. And on those 6 drives, you averaged 6.5 yards per drive. So you're probably going 3 and out. You're doing absolutely nothing to flip the field position. You're not staying on the field to impact time of possession. On the other half of your possessions, when you handed the ball off to Taj twice or more, 5 drives, you averaged 50.4 yards per possession. You go 9 times further down the field if you commit to handing him the ball twice. I just don't know how on any sequence, on any series of downs, he doesn't touch it twice.
That's amazing.
It's inexcusable.
That is amazing. And it's like, well, yeah, you can say that afterwards. No, we said it before.
We've been saying it. We've been saying it since the Baylor game last year. When all 3 quarterbacks played, all 3 quarterbacks threw an interception, none of them completed more than half of their passes, and you go back and look, and both Sir Roderick Thompson and Taj Brooks are both averaging 5 yards per carry.
We said it so much we made hats.
Yes, that's when the hats were made. And that's when you started to mask a lot of your deficiencies. Well, I guess it took you one more week because TCU kind of whipped you pretty good. But then you go on this 4-game win streak. Yes, using Tyler Shuck's legs, but also handing the ball off. And this season, it's been the same story. Like Taj Brooks, 6 carries for 66 yards against Oregon in a game where the quarterback turned the ball over 4 times.
Yeah. Well, and even this year, in this game, West Virginia, this is something I wanted to talk about. After Tyler Shuck's injury, you're running Baron Morton, who did not look confident at all running, and you have a freshman quarterback, true freshman quarterback on the sideline that's the next guy in. You were reckless running the quarterback in this game. Reckless.
You just don't have to.
This was Cliff running Alan Bowman with a split longs against Oklahoma. It was that level of reckless.
If you want to run the ball on 3rd and 2, hand it to Taj Brooks.
Yes.
Like, why are we overthinking this so bad?
And if it's 4th and inches and you want to do a sneak. But 3rd and 2, run Taj Brooks.
I hate it, dude.
And I understand he can't take every single handoff. Do you not have another running back? Cameron Valdez had 1 attempt.
I mean, Bryson Donnell looked good to me last year when he got some run against Tarleton. This year when he got some run, he looks like the same kind of runner as Taj Brooks, just like north-south, hard to bring down, gets some yardage. And that's also where it would help splitting up Taj's carries first half or second half. Like, I know that we went to the well 22 times in the second half with Taj, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to talk about that more later. But imagine if he had 15 in the first half, 15 in the second half. It's probably fine.
Yeah.
And 30 carries is a lot, but if you split it that way, it's a lot more manageable.
And your offense is a lot more consistent.
We got a comment. So Tech had 1 first down at halftime. I think you had 2 because of that last possession where the clock was down, you weren't going to move the ball, and you got kind of a cheap first down while they're in prevent defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had 1 like real first down in the first half. I think you started 1 for, I don't even know, something stupid, 1 for 12 on 3rd down conversions.
And you didn't even need that first down, really. You would have just kicked a field goal anyways.
Yeah, probably so.
I mean, maybe you needed 4 more yards, but.
So I may have miscounted the drives because now in my notes I have that they had 12 drives excluding the end of the half. Earlier I thought it was 11, but either way, this is another thing worth noting. And again, this is all the West Virginia game. 12 drives. This can't be right.
You had 12 drives in the West Virginia game, yes.
This is right. I thought I made a typo. I think this is correct. I'll double check it. 12 drives. Guess how many lasted longer than 2 minutes and 4 seconds?
Ooh. You had the 1 long one at the end of the game. 4 of them.
I'm double checking because in my notes I have that it was 2.
Sheesh.
So I'll just read through it since I'm looking at it. These are in chronological order. 1:27, 1:54, 1:30, 1:28, 46 seconds, 53 seconds. End of half was 14 seconds. Start the second half, 2 minutes, 4 seconds, 1 minute, 50 seconds, 1 minute, 41 seconds.
And then the final 3 drives were over 2:04. We went fast, Haley says.
Sorry. Okay, I'm back. I don't know where that cut out. But start of the second half, 2 minutes, 4 seconds, 1 minute, 50 seconds, 1 minute, 41 seconds, 4 minutes, 42 seconds. That's your first one that went longer than 2:04. 2 minutes, 40 seconds, 3 minutes, 26 seconds. So you had 3 drives that lasted longer than – that was a typo. 3 drives that lasted longer than 2 minutes and 4 seconds. And several here went for less than 2 minutes or a minute and a half or less. So your 6 drives in the first half, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them went for a minute and a half or shorter. And I'm not a big time of possession guy. I don't think that just because you possess the ball for 33 minutes means that you're going to win the ball game. But when you go tempo, and it doesn't offer you any apparent advantage, and you're playing a team that wants to milk the clock, and your defense is tired, and they wind up playing for 35 minutes of the 60, that's a bad strategy. And it's like, I know that I guess tempo is our only offensive identity, but it doesn't work. Not only does it not work, it probably backfires and is actually to your detriment to go tempo. And I don't know why we can't adjust our fight style a little bit to say, okay, we're not going to go for the knockout punch in round 1. Or like if it's a UFC, we're going to grapple and wrestle on the ground a little bit, wear you down, tire you out, and then we'll choke you out at the end of it. It's just no patience. It's like, okay, 1st and 10, throw the ball. If it's complete, tempo. We had a sequence. It was 3rd and 20. We were backed up because of a penalty. We had a 15-yard kind of hole shot to Mason Tharp on the sideline. Good throw and catch. 4th and 5, we make the decision quick. We're going forward. Tempo up to the line. Must not be a good look because everybody's covered, and Morton just has to kind of like throw it into traffic, incomplete. Why do we have to do that?
We don't.
There's 32 seconds on the game clock. It's the like, I just don't get it. Other than going tempo for the sake of going tempo because we want to go fast and that's what we do. But that's just like a circular argument. We go tempo because we go tempo, but for no like actual quantifiable advantage that anybody can define for me.
There was a time when tempo was used as a tool in spots, right? If it's a change of pace, it throws off the other team. But if you're going tempo the whole time, they've prepared for it. They've prepared to get in position and go base defense against you. Like there's nothing you can do in tempo that confuses anyone anymore.
No.
And if you go tempo with Taj Brooks and he runs 7 yards and then he runs 3 yards and you try to run him 3 times in a row, he's going to get stuffed. You can't go tempo when you're trying to run the ball. You could run the ball with Taj Brooks 6 times in a drive if you're running the clock. Right? But you can't do that with him. You're gonna gas him out like you did in the second half. Like run another running back on there if you want to run 6 times in a row.
Or West Virginia had a possession. I think it was a 13-play drive. They ran the ball 12 times.
In the first half, yeah.
And we've just got this like self-imposed ban. It would never cross our mind to just not throw the ball on a drive. Even if like 1st and 10 on your own 25 after a touchback, we get 8 yards, it would never cross our mind to just run it on 2nd and 2. No. And if you get a first to run it again and just run it till they stop you, it would never happen.
And it's not like a deep shot on 2nd and 2, which I love. It's a throw to the sideline that loses 3.
And that we tempoed into, and then we tempo out of that on 3rd and 3 into quarterback power, and we just tempoed ourselves into a 26-second 3 and out for the 4th time.
Yeah.
It's maddening. Like I could not draw up an offense that I personally hate to watch more than this. And I know that it's not your identity at Texas Tech, that we've been air raid for 20 years and all this stuff, but it's just like the game evolves. And when air raid was new and Leach was innovative, you had a good offense. That's what made the air raid cool. It wasn't just going air raid for the sake of air raid. And like, I don't know, maybe there's some correlation between the fastest teams in the country tempo-wise and offensive success rate, yards per play. But I know we were the fastest team in the country last year, and we were 94th in yards per play. And so I'm not seeing the benefit.
Bryce says Morton was possibly hurt or wincing in pain the whole second half. I saw that live. He grabbed his shoulder after a quarterback run, and then they went and run a sneak on the next play.
Yeah, I think there's some concerns about the injury he sustained there on his throwing shoulder.
Yeah, on a design.
Something to maybe keep an eye on.
On a designed run. Let's see. We kind of blew through the first half. Do you want to go through a drive-by-drive, or we're just kind of talking about it in circles here? In the second half, let's just focus on Texas Tech. Punt, turnover on downs, 8 plays, punt, your first 3 drives. And then I believe, into the third quarter, into the fourth, you have a 13-play, 79-yard drive, your best drive of the day, a touchdown full of Taj Brooks, and then Baron Morton passed to Duran Bradley. Your one good drive of the game. Full of Taj Brooks.
Imagine that. And by the way, there's a reason why I'm so nitpicky about why I say handing the ball off instead of just running it. Because Kitley could sit here and say, well, I run it all the time with Shuck, and Morton, I think, finished with like 11 carries. Some of those were sacks. It's like they're not running backs. And Taj Brooks is a really good running back. And I'm fine to use the quarterback's feet as kind of like a complementary piece in the offense. But if you look at the success rate, if you look at the yards per carry, it's not remotely comparable to quarterback run game versus just doing the most simple thing there is to do in football on the offensive side of the ball, and that's hand the ball off to the running back. And it's like, it's the most obvious thing. Everybody's got it figured out except the guy calling the plays. And it is so freaking frustrating to watch. And I don't know how, like, there's no way you can slice it. Like doing that breakdown of 3 and outs when you don't hand the ball off, or the drives when he gets 2 or more carries versus when he gets 0 or 1. I guess people can grasp at straws because I posted that and somebody said it was correlation but not causation. It's like, well, it's a pretty good guess. When you go 9 times further by handing the ball off, and all your worst drives involve not handing the ball off.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you really want to roll the dice with those two things probably aren't related, or do you want to keep handing the ball off and see what happens?
Oh, man. So we're just 2 sexy jokers doing a podcast. But a 1-3 start is pretty damning, in my opinion. You could say that the Wyoming game was a fluke. You could say that Oregon was ranked 15th and just better than you. What can you say about West Virginia? You can't say anything, but you just got beat. And they were tougher and more competitive and harder working than you. Is there a game yet where you've seen the brand, even against Tarleton, that we talked about all offseason? Can you think of a moment in a game where you just looked tough?
I mean,
defensively.
That was the example I was going to think of. I think you stopped Oregon on a 4th and 1 when the game was very much in the balance. And
that was a tough one.
I think the defense really competed that game. I guess let's talk defense for a little bit before we pivot, because I'm obviously fixated on the offense. Before we talk defense, we should go on the offensive at Rahino Barbecue this weekend. I'm going to be in Lubbock, and I'm going to be in Olton to chow down on the best barbecue in West Texas. We will be offended if you don't go to Rahino Barbecue this weekend. Marketplace is open 7 days a week. Brick and mortar open 5 days a week. The ribs are good. The turkey is good. The brisket is good. It's like running the ball. You can't miss while you're at Rahino Barbecue. Give them a follow on social at Rahino BBQ. Order ahead online, RahinoBBQ.com. The lines are long because everybody loves their barbecue, so order ahead to make sure your food is there when you arrive. The defense, I have pretty much no gripes with. I told my wife I could sit here and nitpick, and I could show you a play or a series where they didn't play a perfect game, but nobody ever plays a perfect game. To me, the defense within this game and all season is like a B+. And the defense has been good enough to be 4-0. Really, the main thing is the penalties in the least opportune spots and the lack of quarterback contain. And those 2 things were issues against Wyoming. I think it's why you lost that game. Like, Wyoming's offense did nothing to you all night. It was when he shoved them out of bounds late, lost contain on Peasley. That's the only time they moved the ball. Oregon, a little bit different story. Nix was good. He kind of carved you up. But same deal against West Virginia. Like if Markiel doesn't hit some of those QB draws and you don't commit four penalties on third down that would have been a change of possession or at least force them to punt, and instead you extend their drive, you probably win that game. I'm still not putting it at the feet of the defense because the offense is so miserable. But like beyond that, 20 points in regulation on the road against Wyoming, 20 points in regulation on the road against West Virginia is good enough for even an offense that's not quite mediocre to win the game. Like you should be able to score 21 or 23 points in regulation.
Yeah, and we both picked. No, like if you would have given your 24 offensive points that you picked for Texas Tech to score in Morgantown, you would have won the game. Like that should be enough. 20 points on the road should be enough in the Big 12. 20 points.
And had you not just literally wasted the entire first half, you probably would have. Like hand the ball off to Taj twice per possession in the first half. He's not going to be gassed. Like he'll have. Let's say he had just 2 carries every possession in the first half. He would finish with 12 carries. Perfectly fresh for the second half.
Yeah.
And you probably have more than 3 points on the board. And are probably forcing West Virginia to play from behind a little bit, put the ball back in Markiel's hands, and not just be able to run clock. Like, you've been so good defending the run against C.J. Donaldson, I think, had 3 yards per carry. Oregon's running backs had 3 yards per carry. Wyoming's running backs had 3 yards per carry. You're a good run defense against a traditional run game. It's all quarterback scrambles, quarterback draw, and usually on third down, third and long, that extends drives and penalties. Like that's my only gripe with the defense through 3 games against FBS competition. And again, that's nitpicky compared to an offense that does absolutely nothing to help them out in terms of field position, time of possession, momentum, anything. It's like they just get put in bad spot after bad spot, and they still do enough to win the game. So there's individual guys, Malik Dunlap, if the referees have their heads screwed on right against Oregon, he has 4 picks through 4 games. Dadrian Taylor Demerson is flying around. I don't think he's been out of position really that I can remember. Ben Roberts, redshirt freshman, thrust into the starting linebacker spot. He's done great. Jalen Hutchings and Tony Bradford, they were up against an All-American center, and Zach Frazier played a good game, but it all amounted to 3 yards per carry except when Markiel was running. And so, again, we can nitpick the pass rush. We can nitpick the quarterback contain. But they're doing enough to win games, period.
Question on Steve Linton. Is he second string now? I noticed Adedare played a lot. So I would assume Adedare has passed him up.
I think potentially. I think a lot of that had to do with knowing that West Virginia wasn't going to throw the ball. And so why put a guy out there whose primary skill set is rushing the passer when you know they're not going to do that? And when they do it, it's not going to be a deep drop back where you'd have a chance to sack them anyway. Noted that as well. Same as the Wyoming game. You went with kind of that 5-2 front where the star position wasn't on the field. You did that early a couple times. And I call it 5-2 because our outside linebackers are basically just stand-up ends. But maybe you'd call it a 3-4 with the outside backers walking down. But anyway, so yeah, maybe that was just a matchup deal, knowing that West Virginia wasn't going to throw it. But something to monitor going forward for sure.
Dingle has looked really good in his minimal snaps. I think so. He's really fast. Jay Boog gets double on every play. Yeah, he should, and he still makes plays. He's really good. Malik Dunlap for Jim Thorpe Award. Oh, we have a don't let me forget, we have a Big 12 hotline to listen to.
Okay. Man, one of those comments reminded me of something. 1-3 start is obviously not what anybody envisioned. And obviously Joey McGuire is the leader of this program. But among the players, who is the vocal leader in the huddle, on the sidelines, on the field through 4 games?
Offensively, I have no idea.
Offensively or defensively? Who is it?
Defensively, I feel like Rabbit, maybe. But I don't know. He doesn't really seem too vocal on the field. yelling at everybody getting their positions. He was walking down and putting Ben Roberts in position against Oregon.
Who showed you? Let's stick to West Virginia, and let's stick to the defensive side of the ball. Who on the defensive side of the ball showed you the most spark, fire, fight, energy, whatever you want to call it?
Do you have a name in mind? Because I would still say Rabbit. He was all over the field.
I saw one instance of any of those things that I just mentioned in a game that you were essentially losing start to finish, and it was a true freshman, Michael Dingle, made a huge hit on their tight end, and he got up, talked some shit to the West Virginia sidelines. I loved it.
I saw that.
He was the only guy I saw that was like fired up to be playing a football game.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
And that to me is another indictment, just like on the, culture is a word that gets thrown around a lot in college football. And what's this program's culture like? To me, we have a culture of guys that when shit gets tough in Laramie or Oregon or in West Virginia, I'm like looking for anybody to be the guy to get in somebody else's face, to be a spark on a key third down, something. And there's a little bit of it on defense. I think you're right. It's probably Rabbit, and you've got some veterans on the defensive line. But for a true freshman middle linebacker who's pretty much out there just to spell some guys, like he's not playing a lot of snaps, for him to show the most fight and energy of anybody on that side of the ball is like really damning. Then offensively, I don't even have a true freshman or anybody I didn't see jack shit in that respect from the offense. Nothing.
No juice.
Zero. Nada.
Not even Baron Morton yelling at a receiver.
And that's I'll save the rest for my final thoughts, but like remind me of that when I space on my final thoughts at the end. But it's like, guys, you're out of the gates here through the non-con, disappointing. And you've got a chance to kind of get right here, clean slate during conference play, and you're losing to the team that was picked to finish last, and it doesn't look like anybody really gives a shit. And I know they do, because I know they put in a lot of work, and I know that these losses hurt the staff, the coaches, the players, everybody. But show me that before the clock hits all zeros, that somebody wants to make a difference and inspire the rest of their team to maybe make a change when we're losing. And I don't see anybody that is kind of taking the mantle there and trying to be that spark. And before Shuck got hurt, I would have said it has to be him. Like he's the 5th-year, 6th-year quarterback, whatever. A lot of that responsibility just comes with playing the quarterback position. He's a guy who's been there before. He's been in college a long time. He should have the maturity, the experience. And maybe he's just not that kind of leader. Some guys are kind of quiet, do it by example. But I don't see it from a running back, a receiver, an offensive lineman. And I know Joey's a big energy guy. He's an inspirational personality.
Yeah.
But he can't do it all the time. Like it needs to come from the players at some point.
Paul says, need more tires and pump jacks. That gets it done. The tire is a little bit worn out, I think.
I think any gimmick when you're 1-3 it can be done.
I need to get back to basics. Everything is rainbows and positives from Joey. Even in his press conferences, he's talking about how proud he was. Yeah, Joey needs to get real. Not like, get real, man. Like there needs to be some fire and brimstone in the locker room. Now, I don't think it needs to be public, but they need to look at some hard truths in the locker room. You lost to a team that's worse than you. You should have beat West Virginia. You're better than Wyoming. You're better than West Virginia. You should be 3-1. And you need to look at that and say, we're juiceless. We don't have the right offense of scheme for our team. And we need to get back to basics. They really do. And they need to slow down.
Yeah.
You have anything else from the game before we move on?
Oh, yeah. Lots more.
All right, let's do it.
I asked you after one game. I'll ask you now that we're a third of the way through the season. What is our offensive identity?
Zero identity. Tempo.
Name the best offense, NFL or college football, best offense without an identity that you've ever seen.
Well, I would say the Dallas Cowboys last year with Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore didn't have an identity. But I couldn't give you a real one.
Let's talk quarterbacks for a little bit, because people like to talk quarterbacks. Tyler Shuck barely got to play, I think 2 drives. Maybe the third was when he got hurt. I've got it in my notes somewhere. It was his third possession. Since we were going tempo, did not see. I don't think the replay of the second down when he injured his leg was shown until after the third down. But I thought when he went down on second down, he looked like he was kind of slow to get up, and I was like, I think he just hurt himself.
Yeah.
And then seeing all the replays, which they, I think, only showed because they didn't realize how bad it was, clearly breaks his leg. It was low enough. I was like, maybe it's his ankle.
Yeah, I thought he dislocated his ankle, but it was nasty. I hate sports injuries like that.
I do too. I don't love that I saw it, but people on Twitter were. I'll get to that in a second. Somehow,
shot pissed me off.
Do what?
The screenshot from a Tech fan pissed me off.
Oh, I didn't see that, but I was wondering how in the world he got off the ground and like put any weight on it.
Yeah.
And then runs a play, like tries to plant and throw a pass. When they showed the reel, I was like, he broke his leg for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And so on that note, and by the way, what I'm getting to on all this is that Tyler Shuck is tough as hell, and I compliment him for that and admire him for that. You have these Twitter geniuses that were like, no, I think he just rolled his ankle on the first play and then it broke. I was like, well, that'd be a hell of a coincidence, right? That he just happened to roll his ankle. It's like, I saw the replay. His leg was snapped in half. And then people are like, well, actually the fibula isn't the weight sustaining, the load bearing. I was like, shut up. He broke his leg and played another down of football. And y'all are like trying to make it out like he's got a bone bruise or something. And again, I saw the replay. Yeah. His foot and ankle are not, parallel with his leg.
It snapped.
I don't know how he got up. And I'm sure that it was, like I saw this floated, that maybe it was a hairline fracture at first. And then when he put weight on it, made it worse. It's possible. But I don't know how he got up. I would have been wailing, like ripping off my helmet, like, oh my God, the world is ending. And I know adrenaline is a hell of a thing. And maybe that's part of what allowed him to stand back up. But man, that sucked. Like the shots of him on the cart and everything. Like, I know that fans have opinions on quarterback play, and a lot of people wanted Morton. I think you and I both wanted Morton. We did not want our quarterback to break his leg and for his college career to maybe even come to an end there. I don't know what his eligibility. He's got a strange eligibility thing because he redshirted at Oregon, played during the COVID season, and then twice now has been injured before the completion of the fourth game, which I think would make him eligible for at least one medical redshirt year. But man, it reminded me of Bryce Ramirez last year. His probably wasn't as severe of an injury, but still really bad. And no matter who you're watching, but especially a guy that plays for your team, ugly. Hated to see that.
Really disgusting.
So yeah, his day was short, and of course we wish him a speedy recovery. I would venture to guess that's probably the last we see of him in a Tech uniform, which is also sad, just given the circumstances. Like I said, he may be able to get another year of eligibility. I don't know if he'll be here or not. And for a guy that twice before this had his season either ended or missed a huge stretch of it due to other injuries, just sucks. It's a lot of bad luck. So Morton comes in. What did you think of Baron Morton's performance?
Early, he looked completely out of sync, like he had no idea he was going to play today, which he didn't because it was an injury. Didn't look warm. In fact, if a backup quarterback comes in, what would you do the first two? What would you do the first two drives?
Hand
the ball off.
I was going to say, if BJ Simmons himself was our quarterback this year, I would still want to hand the ball off. But especially when it's raining, when you've got a guy who didn't rep all week at practice,
cold,
and the run has been working for you, run the ball. But it was like all sprint out stuff. I went back because I tried to make sense of how he could only complete 35% of his passes, because that is dreadful. I was like, how many of these were drops or throwaways? It's like we don't let him sit in the pocket until he's like 0 for 4, and they were all sprint outs. So I don't get that either, like doing nothing there to get him into a rhythm. So by my estimation, and some of this is maybe subjective, 13 completions, 14, I would say bad passes, like either inaccurate, throwing it into coverage, the ball gets batted down at the line of scrimmage. 6 drops. There were some toss-ups there, and I felt like if I was leaning drop on one play and then the next one was 50-50, I would say not a drop. So I hope that 6 drops is a fair estimate. And then 3 he threw out of bounds.
Yeah, there were a lot of drops. Out of bounds is generous.
What do you mean?
He threw him close to the sideline.
Oh, yeah, that one. It looked like he was trying to throw it to the West Virginia defender, tie rope in the sideline.
Yeah.
But that was my part of my beef with Shuck, and I saw this take, and I disagreed with it, that, like, Morton's bad plays were really bad, and I'm like, his worst plays were incomplete passes. And Shuck's worst plays were pick sixes and red zone turnovers. So I disagree with that entirely. He's still a pretty young and experienced guy, so if he does start the next 8 games, I'm sure he will have some bad plays, bad passes. I don't know if the weather played a factor. I'm sure it did. The ball was slippery, and I think the entire fourth quarter he was playing with a right shoulder injury.
Yeah,
and that could have also been responsible. So I know he's a better passer than 35%. You saw it in flashes, and he needs to be more consistent. We need to complete way more than 35%. But he made some throws that were also absolute dimes, and you're like, yeah, this, if the consistency is there, this could work.
Yeah. Daniel says, in all fairness, you just watched QB1 get his leg broken. Anyone would have nervous energy running through them. Sure. But you could settle him down if you went out there and just ran the ball a couple of times.
That's what I would love to see.
And if you go 3 and out from running the ball, you've been going 3 and out anyways. What's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see what he looks like with a week as quarterback 1, a week of taking starters reps in practice, and hopefully an adapted offensive philosophy that doesn't ask him, hey, you're about to make your, 4th career start? We're going to throw the ball 55 times with you, even when it's not there. I would like to see them obviously open things up by running the ball and helping the young, inexperienced quarterback be successful. Like I would love to see – we're not going to do this. I would love to see a 180 on tempo and for us to bleed the play clock down to 5 every time and run the ball 40 times and pass it 25. Would love that.
Can we get in the trust tree for just a second?
Yeah.
We're playing Houston next, yes?
Yep.
I'm terrified. This is Dana's Super Bowl. This is Donovan's Super Bowl. They're going to be in Lubbock for the 2nd year in a row, which I know they hate. This is going to be a tough, tough game.
And we know Donovan Smith can throw touchdown passes to Cougars in the Jones.
Yes, he can.
That was a cheap shot, especially at 1 and 3. I don't know why we're talking any noise to anybody, but
we
me. No, you're right though. Like, and hey, Vegas always knows more than we do, but Tech opens. I saw anywhere from 7 to 10-point favorites.
Crazy.
And the Tech fan reaction is, what the hell? Bet Houston. So we'll see. But yeah, they're going to want this one pretty bad. And you haven't earned anything on the field yet for me to think that you're good or that you should be favored by that much. So yeah, this would be an absolutely brutal loss to go to 1 and 4 against a quarterback that, I don't want to say you processed, but
right.
It would be bad. It would be really, really bad. A Big 12 newcomer looking for their first conference win. I mean, that would be like a back-breaking, soul-crushing.
Now, I think you can beat them, but I am nervous.
It's not going to be pretty.
Maybe I won't be nervous by Wednesday, but I'm nervous today.
Yeah.
Of course, I just had every single one of my teams lose this weekend, so I'm pretty broken as a sports fan.
Hey, the Rangers swept the Mariners.
Oh, that's true. I'm a baseball fan still. That's true. I had already flipped to football season, but now I'm a baseball fan again.
What I would also love to see is 0, and I mean 0. I'll put an asterisk next to this. 0 designed quarterback runs, unless it's 4th and 1 or less, and we're doing a quarterback sneak under center and pushing him forward. Besides that, 0 designed quarterback runs.
West Virginia didn't get their first quarterback sneak. They got stuffed.
How does the offensive line not move an inch
that was awesome.
on a quarterback sneak, and yet you give them a yard?
Yeah. They got absolutely stuffed. Tech got hosed on that spot. Also, if you're not doing the Jalen Hurts, 2 people in the backfield pushing the quarterback sneak nowadays, what are you doing? That is the only way you should be doing a quarterback sneak. Lubbock High puts an offensive lineman at quarterback and 2 offensive linemen behind him and do a quarterback sneak that way. Now, you can't do that at the collegiate level probably because they're all taped up and you don't want them taking snaps. But, I mean.
Yeah, I don't want anybody besides the quarterback taking snaps, but can we put 255-pound Henry Teeter back there to push the quarterback forward?
Yeah.
What is Tosh, 230?
Yeah, push him. Put Ty Buchanan back there. Give him a good sandwich. I'm telling you. Yeah, let Jalen Hutchings take the snap. I don't know.
Honestly,
a former quarterback on the roster that can take a snap and put it forward.
What I would love to see, and I would not complain about this at all, I would give them a standing ovation. If we ran the ball 3 times in a row, starting on 1st and 10, and even if we didn't get it, if they stuff us and it's 4th and 5 and we have to punt, I would be the happiest man.
On the first drive?
Any drive.
Oh. I want to see it on the first drive.
Any drive. I don't think we're capable of doing that, of calling that. I think we could do it if we called it. But just like, what's the doubt? Like, I'm looking at these drive summaries, and it's like incomplete pass, incomplete pass, incomplete pass. You punted the ball and ran 12 seconds off the clock. But I mean, taking a knee is better than that. Why not hand the ball to a running back who's really good and see if he can get 10 yards in 3 carries? Spoiler alert, he can. He does it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, he's tired. Okay, well, let's quit going tempo. Give him 30 seconds to breathe in between plays, and he could probably run another 6 yards.
Yeah. Give him a second. But no, we have to go as fast as humanly possible up to the next snap. We want to go fast. That Joey Maguire impersonation video is going to haunt me.
It's aging poorly.
Yeah.
I want to demand answers and be like, why go fast?
Yeah.
Because honestly, I could give them an out. If they said, well, we thought it was going to give us an edge. Okay, well, 4 games in, it's not giving you an edge. So are you going to now go away from it? Tell me why we're going fast. I mean, I think I know why. It's like Kitley came up in the cliff tree, and that's all he knows. It's all he does. But I would much rather be efficient than fast. I'd rather have 9 possessions with no 3 and outs and winning time of possession than 12 and just punting it as fast as we can.
Right.
I'm looking for any spot on the rewatches where it's like, hey, we hurried to the line and they weren't set yet and we gashed them because of it. It never happens.
No. Get in the huddle. Let's do it. Let's go that slow.
Or if you were a really good offense and you thought, okay, we want to maximize the total number of plays that we run, and if we can run 15 more plays than them, as good as our offense is, that gives us an advantage. But when you're a bad offense, and you are a bad offense on a per drive, per play, this is why I tell people not to look at total yards. Say, 400 yards. You ran 92 plays. You suck. We're not a good offense. And so we should be trying to run as little as possible.
Yeah.
Your advantage at that point is in shortening the game, having the most efficient drives possible, not putting the offense out there for as many possessions as possible. It's completely backwards. And
by the letter of the law there, putting your defense out for less possessions.
Yeah. That's how these other teams are trying to beat you, is by running the clock, and that's how Wyoming and West Virginia beat you. They out-uglied you for 60 minutes, and you played right into it both times.
Yeah.
I've got a couple notes on that. Hang on. Let me find them.
Okay.
On, like, basically, you refuse to do what you're good at, and you keep doing what you're bad at. Geez, a lot of messages in the Discord. So, okay. Where did it go? Goodness gracious.
And the Discord's popping?
Yes, and I just had it, and then okay. This is depressing stuff. This is actually about the Texas Tech defense, kind of. Wyoming is 118th nationally out of 133 in yards per play, Wyoming's offense. And I consider that to be pretty much the best metric of is your offense good or not, yards per play. West Virginia is 128th. You played two bottom 10% offenses in all of FBS, not just Power 5, and you lost to both of those teams.
Yeah.
Now, they only scored 20 on you. Like, it's not like those are bad offenses that scored a ton of points on you, but the fact that you couldn't outproduce them is depressing. In terms of rush yards per attempt versus FBS competition, Taj Brooks, if he were his own team, would rank 6th nationally in yards per rush attempt. Now, that's a little bit misleading because, like, so Tennessee is up there, and I think he would be right on par with Tennessee. But Tennessee, that counts their quarterback runs, which is also sacks. And so not quite apples to apples, but you kind of see how good he is relative to some elite rushing offenses. We rank 112th. Texas Tech's offense ranks 112th nationally in the share of our plays that are runs. So basically, we run the ball less than all but 20 teams in all of college football.
Wow.
And if that sounds bad enough, remember that Tyler Shuck had more carries than Taj for the Oregon game. And, like, we've had a lot of designed quarterback runs, a lot of sacks. So in handoffs to running backs, I bet we're probably, I'm just guessing, 125th out of 133. And that is the only thing that you're good at on offense, by the way, is handing the ball off to the running back. Let's see. We rank 44 spots higher in terms of the share of our offense that comes from rush yards. We're 78th nationally compared to the share of play calls that are runs. We're 112th nationally. That's the one I just cited. So even though we run the ball less than anybody, we're almost middle of the pack in terms of how many rush yards we get out of our total offense.
I was about to ask the next question.
It makes you wonder if we just ran the ball middle of the pack, like the share of our run plays were 50%, like is kind of the median in college football, what share of our offense would come from rush yards? We'd probably be, I don't know, top 30 in that. It's like, look, it's taking an assessment of your offense and saying, okay, we're really good at A, so we're going to do A less than everybody else in the country. We're really bad at B, so we're going to do B more than anybody else in the country. And while we're doing this entirely backwards offensive philosophy, we're going to do it as fast as we can and run it as many times, run the offense as many times as possible within the game so that we just, like, multiply how bad we are on a per play basis. If I was the opposing defensive coordinator, I would want us to do exactly what we do right now.
Yeah.
I would be like, I hope that they don't hand the ball off and that they run as many plays as they want. We will let them go tempo.
Yep. And we'll keep everything in front of us, and because they don't take vertical shots. You're right.
No, I'm not. It's like, it'd be like this, Rob. You and I are good friends. We could be honest with each other. It's like if you and I were about to go to a dinner party together and we carpool. And before we walk in, we're sitting in your truck and you go, hey, Kyle, just friend to friend, want to let you know you're not that funny. You know, you're a nice guy. You've got some other great qualities, but you're not that funny. So don't go in there and try to tell a bunch of jokes. And I was like, okay, bet. And I go in there and like every single person, I'm like, knock, knock. You'd be like, dude, you're going about this completely wrong. That's how we run our offense right now. Everything we're bad at, we do it as many times as we can all game long. Everything we're good at, unless we absolutely have to, we just refuse to do it. It makes me angry.
We got a comment here. What's Discord? How do I get to it? Discord is an app that is like a giant group chat with different channels. You can get to it by subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/gamblinggauchos. It is a Patreon perk, the Discord link. Now, we're getting a lot of these comparisons to Matt Wells and David Yost.
No.
Can we squash that real quick?
Yes. Do you want to?
Maybe the David Yost stuff, because the offense is that bad. But Joey McGuire is not Matt Wells. Joey McGuire has two of the best recruiting classes, one in 3 months, one in a year, and then one coming down the pike that are better than anything that anyone has done at Texas Tech recruiting-wise since 1 year of Tommy Tuberville, and half those guys came to campus. This is unprecedented in recruiting. You just got a five-star wide receiver locked in. Committed. Ellis Davis, a four-star offensive lineman who could be one of the best four-star offensive linemen you've ever had committed, is on Twitter talking down fans, saying, hey, guys, calm down. We're on the way. This is not a Matt Wells program trajectory. Now, is it Matt Wells results? Sure, because you're 1-3. But it's not Matt Wells' trajectory. You are on a good path.
Yeah, go ahead and rattle off for me the top 3 wins of the Matt Wells era, which was 2 3/4 of a season.
How fast are we forgetting last year happened?
Yeah, I could give you Joey's top 3 wins in one season.
Yeah.
And you could maybe say, no, they would be Matt Wells' 3 best wins.
What was Matt Wells' best win?
Oklahoma State in 2019.
Against Taylor Cornelius.
No, that was Spencer Sanders.
Oh, and at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Cliff.
I think they were ranked like 20th or something.
Yeah. And Oklahoma State had like 30 turnovers in the first half and then nearly still came back on you. They didn't.
And like number 2 of the Matt Wells era is Houston in 2021, I guess.
Baylor.
He didn't actually. Oh, during COVID we beat Baylor.
Yeah.
The 2-8 Baylor team.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So no, and yeah, like go ahead and point me to Matt Wells' top 30, top 35 recruiting classes.
Matt Wells beat West Virginia.
Yeah, he did 3-0.
3-0.
That's what Joey should have told him at halftime. Like Matt Wells is not walking through that door.
Oh man.
All right, I've got one more thing on the offense, and then I'll shut up at least until my final thoughts. Something that I know fans are tired of hearing is, well, we didn't run the ball because we're taking what the defense gives us. I've got 3 thoughts on that. Any one of these 3 is enough to never use that phrase again, in my opinion. The 3 combined, that needs to be done. To me, it's like this loser mentality of just admitting defeat before you even line up. Like, do you think that in 2014, when Arkansas came to the Jones and ran it down your throat for 10 yards per carry en route to a 35-point win, that Brett Bielema was like, well, we're going to line up, see how the defense looks, and we'll just take whatever they – no, he said, stack the box with 8 dudes. I don't care. We're going to line up and kick your ass. And they did. Up and down the field all day long. I was there. I had the pleasure of watching it. I just don't think that's not like a – okay, if you're going to say that we're the toughest team in the country, I don't think you can also say, but we're not tough enough to impose our will offensively, and we're just going to take what the defense gives us. I can't square those 2 things. So rather than saying, let's take what the defense gives us, I would like to say, here's our offensive identity. We're going to run it so well, you better hope and pray that you can stop it. And if you do start to stop it, we have a wrinkle that we can add, and we're ready to counter as soon as that's the case. Now, I'm not talking about like, okay, they've got 2 high safeties, whatever, just throw it into triple coverage. But I am talking about, okay, if there's a 6-man box and that means we're supposed to throw it to the sideline, maybe we should try running it against a 6-man box, because I think that's ultimately kind of what it means. Point number 2, does it look like we're taking anything anyway on offense? Are you watching our offense going, hey, if they're going to give us that 10 yards, we'll take it all day?
No.
We don't take anything from anybody on offense.
You're not taking candy from a baby right now.
So, okay, like we can approach it that way. We can try to take what they give us, but even that, what they're allegedly quote unquote giving us, we're coming back empty-handed. So that to me would also make, if I was the offensive coordinator, I would say, okay, let's reassess the approach here, because we thought we were about to take all this stuff that they were giving us, and instead we scored 20 points in regulation against a group of 5 team and 13 points against the team that was picked to finish last in the conference. Point number 3, if we're looking for a pass look from the defense, imagine how good it's going to look once we run the ball down their throats for 6 yards per carry and they start stacking the box.
Yeah.
Like you want a pass look? Run the ball first, make them defend that, and then see what they give you.
Yes.
But when they know you're about to go 3 and out, throwing 3 incomplete passes, like, you're not getting good pass looks, obviously.
And which one of those first point bullets, A or B, sounds more like what Joey said in his press conference? We're going to pass it all the time and take what the defense gives us, or we're going to dictate whatever the hell we want to do. What sounds more like
the latter? It was complementary football. It was, we're going to run the offense that best helps the team and the defense, and we're going to make all pieces work together to win football games. The goal was never, we're going to be the fastest team in the country tempo-wise, or we're going to lead the country in yards, or we're going to uphold the Mike Leach air raid legacy. It was complementary winning football. And if that means you're one of the slowest teams in the country tempo-wise and you run it 2/3 of the time, I don't care.
We're going to go slow.
Do you think West Virginia's sitting at 3-1 with a win over Pitt and a win over Tech, playing the game the exact opposite way that you play the game? Do you think their fans are like, well, I wish we would have run more plays? I don't think so.
Who do you think could do what West Virginia is doing better?
We could.
Yes.
And like, that sounds crazy because their offensive line is really good. CJ Donaldson's a good running back. But their whole thing is, like, they don't have the quarterback play to ever add the second element or the additional wrinkle. They can only run it. And you held their running backs to 3 yards per carry despite that being their identity and that being what they want to do. Still, they made enough time of possession gains and made it ugly enough that they won. But it's like, when they did have to go to Mark-Yole, it was mostly bad. If Baron Morton is getting like one-on-one pass looks because we're running the ball really successfully on 2/3 of our plays, I think your offense would be at a whole other level than West Virginia.
Amen.
But we're going the exact opposite. We're saying, hey, you didn't practice all week with the ones, and I know the ball is wet. And even though we're averaging 7 yards per carry with Taj, we're about to go throw a sprint out 3 times in a row and put the defense back out there. So I don't know. If I ever hear we take what the defense gives us, that's what Cliff said after we beat Central Arkansas by a touchdown. Yeah. And you went 4-8 that year, mostly because of the defense. But it's like, I've just not really seen an elite offense or an offense that imposes their will on another team go, yeah, we were just taking what they gave us. And again, I'm not talking about checking it down. Like, I'm for that. If they take away, your primary read is the post route downfield and you get 7 yards on the check down, I'm totally fine with that. I'm not fine with just refusing to run the ball when it's clearly successful for you because allegedly you're getting a pass look that you then go complete 1/3 of your passes against. Agreed. That's actually another good way to look at it. On 2/3 of your pass plays, which I think between Shuck and Morton you threw it 43 times, on 2/3 of your pass plays, you either got 0 yards from an incompletion, or let's call this a wash. You either got sacked or scrambled for a couple yards. but on 2/3 of your dropbacks, you got 0. Do you know how many times Taj Brooks in his 25 carries got 0 or less?
Say that one more time.
Do you know how many times Taj Brooks carrying the ball got 0 yards or less?
Twice.
I thought it was once, but
could have been once. Yeah.
So 2/3 of the time you get 0 or you get sacked, or maybe twice in 25 carries you get 0 or less. Which one do you think we should go with more often?
The first one.
In a game where you don't need 45 points, you don't need to gash anybody, you just need to score 20 points in regulation.
And you get 3 plays to get 10 yards. Most of the time, 4 with Joey.
Yeah, can we talk about that real quick and then be done with the offensive discussion? So I've seen basically like 2 schools of thought on this, that on once you get it to first down, well, let's back up. 3rd and 2, fade route to Nehemiah Martinez. What are we doing? You've got at least 2 receivers on the roster that are 6'5". You've got 2 tight ends that are 6'6" or taller.
And then J.J. Sparkman came in the next play to block. He's the 4th tight end. What is he doing?
Yeah. And you convert on the 4th and 2. Okay, fine. Probably didn't have to make it that hard on yourself. You have all 3 timeouts left. I think 45 seconds. So you can run whatever you want. You've got plenty of time. Even if you ran it on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, you call timeout, and then 4th down is for the game. You're running that with the clock stopped. I saw people frustrated that we didn't run the ball with Taj on any of those 4 downs, and I get that. I think it's a bit of a domino effect. Once you don't run it on 1st or 2nd, and it's 3rd and 10 or 3rd and goal, you can't really run it. Maybe you could on 3rd if you're saying we're just going to get half of it, and then we're going to throw it on 4th if we have to. I saw that since he had 22 carries and multiple carries that drive, that he was probably tired. And that's where, again, help me reconcile these 2 things. We're the toughest team in the country. Nobody can handle 60 minutes of us. And we can't run the ball right here because our running back is too tired after playing for 59 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, and don't you have another running back? I'll just go back to that. Like, it doesn't have to be Nehemiah Martinez. Is Cameron Valdez in the doghouse? Is Bryson Donnell in the doghouse where they just don't get carries? Like, yes, run Taj out there to get 4 yards twice. Hey, it's 3rd and 2 from the 2. But instead, you throw the ball 4 times in a
I'm just like trying to picture this as one fluid thought. We're the toughest team in the country, but our running back, he's had 22 carries. I don't know if he can get another here.
Yeah.
Nobody can handle 60 minutes of us, but hey, 59 minutes in, our running back is kind of tired.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure he is tired. He just played a collegiate football game. I'm sure everybody's tired and banged up and hurt. Are we tougher than them or not? I was told that we were.
We're not.
And even if he is tired, you have 3 timeouts. So call one and say, hey, Taj, take a breather for a minute and a half. We're going back to you here.
Yeah.
And if he's tired after that 1 carry, burn another timeout and let him rest for another 90 seconds. Like, you see what I don't buy that we can't run the ball there because he's tired.
And you left at least 2 timeouts in your pocket. Did you call any?
You called 1 with the clock stopped.
Yeah. Oh, after the 3rd and 2.
Yeah, so the 4th down, it looks like either Morton's arm is hit or the pass is batted down at the line, so you don't even get to see how that would have turned out. Bradley's getting mugged, not a high percentage throw. The one to York was your shot to win the game, and I think if he just is able to find his footing a little bit better, he can actually make a leaping grab. I don't think it was a bad throw because if you look at the replay, it barely gets past the fingertips of the linebacker.
He threw it where he had to throw it.
I think if he throws any lower, it's picked off or batted down at the very best. So I think he put that ball where it needed to be. I get why we're mad we didn't run the ball, but again, by 3rd down, you probably have to throw it anyway. So that was to me, that was a sequence that you can prove the brand right there. We ran it 22 times with our bell cow this half. Everybody in the stadium knows we're about to run it 3 more times to see if they can stop us, and we're going to do it anyway and win the game, or at least tie it up and go to overtime. And instead we said, Our running back might be tired. I don't know if he can handle one more minute and get all the way to 60 minutes. Either that or we just thought it was a better idea to throw the ball, which I don't know what during the 59 minutes of that game prior or the 3 games prior would make them think that. But anyway, I totally get the gripes with the end of game sequence there.
I was just going to blow right past that. I didn't want to really go back to it, but that's bad, man. That was a bad sequence. And to just get to overtime. That's all you had to do there was just get to overtime. And I bet you win that game. Maybe not with an injured quarterback and a tired running back, but yeah. And I made the joke in the game that West Virginia was the toughest, most competitive, hardest working team on the field that day. And you're going to see that a lot. People were attacking Joey in the comments. It's like, we don't need to do that, but it's just, you say it all offseason, you have to prove it, and you haven't proved it yet. And you have to prove it against Houston. You have to beat their ass. You have to go out there and beat, not on the scoreboard, but physically beat their ass, tough-wise, family program. Go out and beat their butts, out-tough them for 60 minutes. You have to. At home, to save the home crowds, you have to beat Houston and physically impose your will. You have to.
And, hey, if carry number 23, 24, 25 is too much in one half for Taj Brooks, maybe space him out and give him more than 3 in the first half.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Going back to the whole theme of the episode right there, run the damn ball.
All right, Big 12 hotline time.
Let's do it.
Let's do this, and then we'll go fishing. All right, this is the Big 12 hotline.
Hey, guys, a couple of thoughts for the Big 12 hotline here. First off, I think it's a great time to join the Texas Tech football bandwagon, mainly because it can't get any worse than this. So, similar to stocks, it can only get better from here.
Buy low.
Time to buy. For those of the fans that are upset that have bought into Texas Tech football this season and bought into the hype and are just outraged and disgusted by the results so far, I just encourage the Pink Raiders to get out. After I took some time after the game yesterday, I realized that this is Texas Tech football, and you don't expect an orange tree to give you an apple. I really think that Zach Kittley's on the hot seat. I've been thinking that Tyler Shuck was checking into quarterback power for the last 3 weeks, but it seems like it was probably just Zach Kittley based off of Morton getting the same plays. And then just a quick question for you guys. Joey seemed to be pretty hot at the post-game presser about the officiating. Do you guys think we got jobbed by the officials, or do you think that this is just squarely on Texas Tech football for not winning the game? Thanks for your time.
I'll answer the question. Yes, but do I think there were some big calls that were objectively wrong? Yes, but when you score 13 points against the 14th picked team in the conference, I just can't make myself gripe about the refs.
Yeah. The refs certainly seemed one-sided toward West Virginia at times, but that's not why you lost the game.
No.
I mean, that spot on fourth down, the last penalty against who was it?
Baskerville,
I thought was a little bit nitpicky. But letter of the law, I mean, you can call that in the end zone.
Okay, but throw that one up side by side with the 4th and 5 target to Tharp, where the guy's giving him like a frontal piggyback ride.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how is one of those things holding and the other is not? I'm not a rules expert, but and the thing that was really like an absolute game-altering play was the kickoff return where we stripped the ball.
Yes.
While the guy's standing up and like nobody saw it because of body position and everything. Clearly, like a full second before the whistle blows.
Way before.
And they didn't have a good enough camera angle on it, so they weren't going to overturn it because they on the field didn't realize it was a fumble. But yeah, like you should have had the ball there at the 20, 25-yard line, which
right after the touchdown, huh?
It might have been after the field goal to make it 20-13.
I think it was. But still, pivotal point.
I as bad as you needed help, I would have taken a drive starting at the 20 or 25.
Oh, yeah. I've come to the conclusion Joey's off-season hype was just to sell tickets. That from the comment section. Joey's a fantastic salesman. That from the comment section. We'll get to that in the mailbag, I think. Let's head to the Matador Transit mailbag. But first, if you are looking to fish this football season or in the off season, and you want to go wade fishing in legendary Baffin Bay, call Reckham Outdoors or go online, reckhamoutdoors.com. You can follow them on Instagram, Reckham Outdoors. They do guided fishing tours in Baffin Bay. You wade fish. It's not on a boat. You wade out into the water in the South Texas bays. Now, everywhere is West Texas, but if you're on the Texas coast, call Reckham Outdoors to see what's biting. Trophy trout, speckled trout, flounder, redfish. You can catch them all there in legendary Baffin Bay. Follow them on Instagram, Reckham Outdoors, to see those fish pics. They're my favorite kind of pics, fish pics. I love to see them. All right, let's get to the Matador Transit mailbag.
You've got mail.
Mail time.
Mail time. Mail time.
The mail's here. Come on.
I found these in my mailbag.
Well, it's time to reach into the old mailbag here.
Enjoy reading the fan mail. Don't read it all at once.
Any mail for me? You don't have a Tic Tac, do you? Did I get any mail?
No.
Why not, honey?
If Texas Tech soccer hosts a weekend playoff game when football is out of town or off, would Kyle make the dedicated trip to the John Walker Soccer Complex?
Absolutely. When I was a student at Tech, I was pretty into Tech soccer. They getting to know the Gauchos. We haven't done a getting to know the Gauchos segment in a while, but I was an RA or a CA in the dorms. So I lived alone and got my room and board paid for by working on campus. And just so happened the freshmen that were on the soccer team in 2012, so actually Janine, Becky, in that class, they lived on the same floor where I was a CA. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go to some of y'all's games. And they were really good that year. She was, of course, individually stellar, and she has an Olympic gold medal for Team Canada.
Yes, she does.
So, yeah, and I think the soccer stadium it's like perfect sized because it basically fills up, I think, for like Big 12 type games, and especially when they're having a good year there where they're, expected to go to the NCAA tournament and everything. So, yeah, if we're hosting a regional, yeah, I'd be there.
Start bench cut for when the sky falls down on you. Stand on a mountain, bathe in the sea, lay like this forever. Follow up. Question for Rob, over under Kyle knowing that song. Under. Did you get the reference?
I know the song.
Oh, you're a Savage Garden guy?
I wouldn't say that, but I know the song.
Used to be a big Savage Garden guy.
I think this was also mentioned in the mailbag, but I like the Lads in the Pub remix better than the original boy band version.
Do you remember one of my greatest tweets of all time? The Lads in the Pub singing this song, and it was people giving free stuff to Chris Beard.
That's a good one. The best version of that meme that I remember seeing was like kind of at the beginning of COVID when we knew stuff was going to shut down, but we weren't sure when it was going to open back up. Yeah. And it was like me and the lads, getting our first beer when all this COVID stuff is over with. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect.
One guy doing all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Question for Rob, over under Tech beats West Virginia. That was before the game. I told him that was going to be after the game that we answered that. So no, under. This question, have you seen enough? This is going to be a really negative mailbag, by the way.
I mean, I've certainly seen enough to know some stuff. I'm not like hey, I've seen enough, so I'm out on tech football, or I'm out on this staff. I'm making the 5-hour drive next weekend to be there to watch a 1-3 team. So nobody can accuse me of being fair weather.
I'll keep watching, so I guess I have not seen enough. Start bench cut, Keaton Slovis. Is it Keydon?
I think Keaton. I think you had it right.
Keaton Slovis, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Daniels.
In assuming they're fully healthy, I'm probably starting Jaden Daniels. I don't know much about Keaton Slovis, to be honest with you. I don't know. I guess I'll bench Shuck because I know what I'm getting and cut Slovis, but if a BYU fan wants to flame me, they can.
I'm going to just take this opportunity to say every question I read is not endorsing this question. I'm just reading it, okay?
Sure.
How warm is Joey's seat after we lose the game? This is before the loss to West Virginia.
His seat's not warm. He just got a contract extension. He's locked in. I think he might be faced with some tough decisions at the conclusion of the season, but his job isn't in question.
Who is a better used car salesman, Bart Rager or Joey McGuire?
I would guess Bart has sold more, but
you would guess? I think Bart Rager would be the better salesman there.
You know what actually kind of pisses me off is our fans calling our coach a used car salesman when they loved the guy 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay, you
might love the guy in 3 weeks.
You bought the car, right? Like, you were at the Texas Bowl. You were down on the field after we beat Texas. Like,
yeah,
you didn't enjoy that first season. And I know that 1-3 isn't the start anybody wanted or expected, but to be like, oh, he's a fraud after you got to enjoy multiple great memories of this football team last year is that's pretty wishy-washy to me. And I'm not singling out the person who asked that question. I've seen that car salesman comp a million times. And
oh, yeah. It's all over Twitter.
It's well, do you want him to not be a persuasive person? We love the recruiting classes, don't we? But we're pissed that he could sell people on a vision. Really?
A vision that can still be attainable.
Yeah, we're not good this year. Yep. But that doesn't mean to me that he's the wrong guy for the job or that the program is in free fall. I'm not the needle hasn't moved for me at all on Joey McGuire. I'm 100% all in on him being the CEO of this program.
I don't think I'm ever 100% on anything, but Joey's still in the 90s at least. It's a shame that I left KKM and retired the job approval polls, though, because those would be very interesting.
Those would be.
Just throw one up on Tuesday for fun. Let's see. Over-under Shuck applies for a medical waiver and returns next year.
I don't know. I think it's just down to, has he had enough of college football? He's been playing it for a long time. And I would assume that if Morton makes 7 or 8 starts down the stretch here, that, there's not going to be any relinquishing of the job back to Shuck. So he'd have to go to a third school. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's squarely up to him. If he can get, a waiver for eligibility.
I would say no. How long does it take to build O-line depth? At least 3 years.
Yeah, to me, that's not a position that young guys can come in and make an impact very often. It does happen sometimes. But, yeah, I would think, even the guys that I think Joey's very first class in that transition year where he took over for Wells, I think those guys will start to be ready next year.
Yeah.
And so another recruiting class would be another year and so on. That does take time.
Is Joey McGuire still – oh, man. Is Joey McGuire just Matt Wells 2.0, slightly better but still kind of bad?
No. Yeah, show me Matt Wells' top 3 wins show me a bowl game that we qualified for under Matt Wells, and show me Matt Wells' best recruiting class, and then try to make that comp with a straight face.
What about the road brings out the worst in Texas Tech?
I don't know. This reminded me of another conversation we had before the season started about the one-score games. And some people were like, well, yeah, they won so many of those, they're due to regress. All 3 losses, one-score games. I think the difference, though, is not that, like, you find yourself in a tight game and you just can't find the clutch gene. It's that you were 14-point favorites in Laramie and blew it, and you were 6-point favorites in Morgantown and blew it. Like, I don't think that it's the nature of being on the road or the nature of playing in a close game. You're just not living up to potential or expectations this year, whereas last year you were punching above your weight. So last year, your road losses, Oklahoma State's weird because they were like good when you played them and they wound up not being very good. It was like at Kansas State, the Big 12 champ, at NC State, a top 25 team, at Oklahoma State, top 7 at the time, I think. You win in Ames. Which ones am I missing here? Oh, you lose to TCU on the road, like the eventual national runner-up. So I don't know. It wasn't like this where, okay, you're going on the road and losing to a group of 5 team, or you're going on the road and losing to the last place team in the conference. So I think that was a bit of an overdone narrative last year and coming into this year, but I don't know. I don't think you might not be good at home this year either. So it still might not be a distinction that's worth differentiating on.
Yeah, you might just not be good.
Here's a comment: running the ball on the road travels. Yeah.
Yeah, so does defense. And you've traveled twice, and you just haven't done it enough. Let's see. Will Texas Tech win 4 games this year?
I think so.
4 exactly, or more than 4?
I don't know. I'm an optimist by nature, but 2 of your best opportunities are in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. Let's see. At what point do we start worrying about the 2024 commits losing faith in the staff? I think they proved this weekend that they are in it now. So, I don't know. 1-7?
I'll put it this way. I think the guy with by far the most options, Micah Hudson, if he's willing to commit after you lose to Wyoming, I think he can probably stomach some Big 12 road losses. And if he's on board, I think everybody else is probably on board.
Big Hen says, can you help me? I'm down bad. Do you have any positive notes for Big Hen?
The Cardinals won today.
Good. We didn't need to eat that one.
You ask the questions, I answer them.
That's a double-edged sword there, Kyle. Lots of commenting. Any chance we bring in an offensive analyst to help right the ship?
This is a great question, and I actually got off the phone with somebody right before we recorded here, and he brought up a good point. And this was actually kind of asking a different version a couple episodes ago. Why isn't Kitley up in the box? And my answer at the time, I was kind of flippant and was like, well, some OCs are up in the box, some are down on the field. I thought at the time it's just kind of like a preference deal. I don't know who Kitley's quote-unquote eye in the sky is. So, like, even when Cliff was calling plays, you know, he wasn't the OC. Eric Morris or Kevin Johns was the offensive coordinator. But they were, I'm sure, even though they weren't calling plays or anything, they're feeding him information that they're getting a different vantage point, obviously. And I'm looking at, like, so Kitley is not only the offensive coordinator and the play caller. The head coach, Joey McGuire, is not a offense X's and O's guy. The running backs coach, Kenny Perry, splits time with the special teams. Kitley is also the quarterback's coach. I don't think the offensive line coach or the receivers coach is in a position to help call plays or anything. I don't know who is Zach Kitley's quote-unquote eye in the sky. And even if he doesn't go up in the box and he doesn't relinquish play calling duties, I don't know who he has working in tandem with him to say, hey, don't know what that looked like on the field, but the last couple times we've run this formation, they've been in this look, we might try this or that. And that is a real problem to me. And so I forgot actually what even your original question was, but I do think Kitley needs like a co-offensive coordinator type role to be that up in the box, getting a different perspective on everything.
Is it, I think last year, or at least the analytics guy, maybe he's just the analytics guy, but Kirk Bryant's name he's the senior offensive analyst.
Okay.
But I don't know if he's the guy that does that.
I don't know either. And I don't know if Kitley would want to go up in the box, if that's doable. I mean, you'd have to have somebody else to send in the plays. But
yeah,
I think it's worth considering shaking that up at this point.
Considering how inexperienced Kitley is as an OC, this is year Houston Baptist, Western Kentucky, Texas Tech, year 6?
Year 5. He was only at Western Kentucky 1 year.
Okay. Year 5 is some good experience. So I wouldn't say extremely inexperienced, but considering an inexperienced Kitley, how many years would you give him to figure it out? I think Kitley is what he is.
I don't think he has anything to figure out in terms of like, how do I call plays or – yeah, he's in year 5 on the job. He knows what he's doing. Now you can evaluate his performance, however you see fit, and that's all fair game. But I don't think he's like something's going to click in between year 5 and year 6 where he goes, oh, now I guess people are always learning and always growing, but I don't think there's any like magic leap to be made at this point. And we got a comment on the last answer that Cochran is in the box. I know that we have offensive assistants up in the box. I'm wondering who the number 2 is that is the de facto co-offensive coordinator. Because like Cliff's offensive coordinators were not really the offensive coordinators. Cliff is calling the plays. He's sending them into the quarterback. He's probably doing the play design, the install. The offensive coordinator in that staff structure was essentially the second in command, the eye in the sky. That's what I'm wondering is like who is second in command on the offensive staff that is feeding Kitley information from up in the box. And maybe it is Cochran. But to me, that's like, or even Yost. I think Yost was up in the box. But Matt Wells was a former offensive coordinator himself. And like you had a head coach that had been a play caller, had done offensive X's and O's. And I don't know how they worked in tandem, but I think we're like missing an offensive staff person that is like specific to that role. So I would love to see if you don't change offensive coordinators in the offseason or something, I would love to see the addition of a co-offensive coordinator or a run game coordinator, pass game coordinator that maybe has a position group, maybe they don't, but they're kind of like, that's their job, is to feed Kitley information from the box.
Hobbies to try until basketball season.
What was the question?
Hobbies to try until basketball season.
There's always retail therapy at Cardinals. You could tour some barbecue joints in West Texas like Rahino, or you could go fishing in legendary Baffin Bay.
You could hire a lawyer just for fun.
Let's go do some legal stuff.
Was Neil Brown just due?
You tell me.
Seemed to do. That was certainly Neil Brown's Super Bowl.
Like I said, right after the Pitt win, he was talking about Tech. There's a comment, Kyle, we're not changing OCs. They just gave Kitley a 2-year extension. I didn't say we were changing offensive coordinators.
What will it take to make Brett Bielema our next offensive coordinator?
Whatever it takes. Bring him home.
Bring him home. What a departure that would be. What's a more likely outcome? Kitley's offense continues to be stagnant and Tech loses games where he ends up getting fired, or he adapts, gets on a hot streak, and is hired as a head coach for a small program or OC for a giant one.
If the question is like at the end of this season, I don't think he's going to be hired as a head coach anywhere. So I would say that's less likely. I don't think either scenario after this season is terribly likely. Without making that extra leap, I do think that it's certainly within the realm of possibility that Joey says, like, hey, we're going to more or less like give you a pitch count. We need to be more balanced. We're not going to disrupt you in the flow of the game. You need to call whatever you think is best. But like, we're going to look at it after every drive. And if there's an imbalance on run versus pass, we're going to switch things up. We might switch up the tempo. Not saying that it is going to happen, but I think that is certainly worth exploring.
Who's bigger, Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce? Physically, Travis Kelce. I don't, in the global respect, Taylor Swift. What do you think?
I think I could make a couple jokes that would make some Taylor Swift fans mad, so we can go on to the next question.
Okay. Can Rob say something nice about the Cardinals? Yeah, Joshua Dobbs is twice the quarterback that Kyler Murray is. What is Texas Tech's major malfunction?
What is Texas Tech's major malfunction?
Yes. It says what is the university's, what is TCU's major malfunction? But I think he's talking about the football team. Yeah. Yeah. For the podcast audience, run the damn ball. With Taylor Swift now a Chiefs fan, when do they become America's team?
Do you want a really like grumpy old man take?
Yes.
I apologize in advance. I don't want the Swifties coming after me.
Yes.
I refrained from some jokes, but this is a serious take. Taylor Swift dating the second best player on the Kansas City Chiefs is exactly the kind of distraction they don't need that might prevent our boy Patty Mahomes from winning ring number 3. Like, I'm sorry, it's just the facts. Every relationship she gets in winds up being drama. There's an album about it. We don't need that in mid-January when we're like headed to the AFC divisional round. I need Travis Kelce. I need his mind right for the playoffs.
It's early. We can get his fling out of the way. She's sitting with his mom already.
Well, but Pat was saying after the game, he was like, yeah, if they end up together, I might get to meet her. They haven't even met yet, but Mahomes and Kelce are like best friends.
Yeah. Well, they're just hanging out. She's in her fun girl era, Kyle.
I don't like how this is going, Rob. I don't like the relationship dynamics here.
When Romo dated Carrie Underwood, the Cowboys were the 1 seed. Then he went on vacation and threw it all away. No, it wasn't Carrie Underwood. It was Jessica Simpson.
Yeah, he went to like Cabo during the bye week.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Before the playoffs. Have you ever pulled up to the scene with the ceiling missing?
I have not.
Me neither.
Is that a lyric, I guess?
It sounds like a lyric, yes. Sounds like a bar.
Is it Taylor Swift?
Knowing the question asker, probably not. Could have been.
Showed up to the scene with the ceiling missing.
It sounds like a rap lyric.
Like we tore the roof off the place, kind of?
Yeah.
Can you explain that last comment to me? Or is that not?
Kyle is just jealous. No, I can't.
Okay.
It's 2 Chainz. Apparently. When are we going to be good at football?
Next year.
So good.
I still
good at football. I still believe.
I do too. I still think we're going to be really good at football. I think Joey's the right guy.
Do we need to add a minimum points per game clause to Kitley's contract, a la Iowa?
Does Brian Ferentz have that in his contract?
Yeah, it's like 27 points per game or something.
That's not bad for Iowa.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would settle for a share of rushing the ball.
All right, that was the mailbag. Final thoughts?
Boy, do I. Let me consult my notes.
Do you need a reminder on what you were going to talk about? Because you told me to remind you.
Yeah, what did I mention earlier?
Talking about players having juice, Kyle. That's what you want me to remind you on.
Yes. So let me expand on that. We touched on this a little bit right after the Wyoming loss. Was he had all this offseason hype, and game one fell on your face. At 1-3, I think we know that wasn't a fluke. I think we know there are some serious deficiencies up and down the roster on this team. So that's where you're at. Like I said at the top, I would have guessed you had about a 5% chance of starting 1-3. It doesn't appear to me as just a fan, an idiot with a podcast, a guy outside the four walls of the building, that even after the 1-3 start, that it's really clicked with anybody within those four walls. Like just how embarrassing of a start this is. It seems like there's a total lack of self-awareness. And this was alluded to in the comments earlier. You touched on it. Joey is all positivity and all energy, and I love that. That's why when we hired him, every single person in the media that had ever talked to him, every assistant coach, opposing coach that he's competed against in his career, had nothing but glowing things to say about him. And I don't have anything bad to say about Joey right now either. But a 1-3 team that was overhyped and was told a bunch of things that made them feel good all offseason and then has done nothing to prove it, they don't need more positivity and energy right now. They need, like you said, a dose of reality and some accountability. And this is walking the fine line. Like, you never want to be negative, but you also want to give an accurate account of what's going on. And the reality is at 1-3, there's a lot of negative things. And so it's not me trying to sit here and throw a pity party or complain about everything and everyone. But reality is like kind of negative right now for the Texas Tech program. And so I think that's a fair shift in the culture, shift in the messaging that we should want to see as fans, is like the never-ending positivity and encouragement. You don't want to tear anybody down or like be destructive, but you also kind of need a reality check. And like, we dog Texas and their program for this all the time, this sense of entitlement, unearned entitlement. That is kind of what this start has reminded me of. Like, you say these things that this is the best team you've ever coached. This team would beat the bowl team by 2 touchdowns. The defensive line unit will be better without Tyree Wilson. And then you start 1-3 with 2 losses to worse teams. It's like they don't need to go back to the locker room, regroup and be told, hey, tough loss, but we're still a really good football team. And like, no, they kind of need a kick in the rear end and to be told, you've earned absolutely nothing. We have 0 skins on the wall, and it's almost October. We have 0 accolades to our name. You'll have a chance to earn something on Saturday by beating Houston. And like, there's that old expression, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you dig out of a 1-3 hole based on starting the season with Big 12 title game expectations? There's nowhere to go right now other than beating Houston. So that would be my message. And I put this on the Patreon Final Thoughts. 2009, when Texas Tech beat Baylor, we get that famous, iconic Mike Leach speech. Michael Crabtree caught those passes. Graham Harrell threw those passes. Y'all didn't do anything. Y'all haven't earned anything. What we did last season doesn't make a shit. That's what that team needed to hear, because he was right. They had this, well, I was on last year's team. We won 11 games, and so we're just going to show up and beat Baylor. And of course, he said, no, F that, F Baylor, F you, F me. I mean, F everybody. That wasn't a terribly positive message from Coach Leach, but it was the right one at the right time. And I think we need something similar to that. And I don't think Joey's the kind of guy to go in there and drop F-bombs on him like that. And the coaching staff, to be clear, they need to, with the players, take their own share of the accountability, because it's not all on the players. They can say, like, hey, we game planned poorly. We didn't get y'all ready to practice. We didn't call the right plays, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they need to carry the message of accountability themselves. Tell the team in like a motivating way, hey, you've earned nothing, but you have 8 more opportunities. They don't need positivity and energy right now. They need discipline, and they need accountability. This kind of came up actually almost the exact same timeline. I remember Cliff's second year. You barely beat Central Arkansas. I drove to El Paso and watched us barely beat UTEP. And there was a tweet, I think, from Scott Fitzgerald. He was like, this team doesn't need swagger or, good looks. It's like they need toughness, and that's kind of where I think we're at. And that might go against Joey's nature, and I get that might be hard on him, like to be the disciplinarian and to have to motivate in a different way than what he's naturally so good at. But I think that's what this team needs right now. And going back to just a couple examples of the lack of self-awareness. You're losing in the fourth quarter to a team that was picked 14th out of 14. And on one of the rare occasions where you find success on offense and we get a first down, our guys are still doing that like slime, wipe your nose, point for the first down. Like, quit pounding your chest that you got a first down. We're losing by 10 here in the fourth quarter. Get your head on right. We make a field goal to cut it to 7 points, 20-13. And we've got this like secret handshake with the holder, the kicker, the snapper, and it's all smiles and laughs. Like, guys, we're on the doorstep of 1-3 here. And I mentioned it earlier, like, who is the fire? Who's the spark coming from on the team, not the head coach? I mean, like, among the players, who is that coming from? And I don't see it. I see guys that are like happy to get a first down while we're about to lose the game and happy to make a field goal to cut it to 7 while we're about to lose a game. And there's just no sense of urgency or sense of self-awareness on like how bad a 1-3 start is. So that's concerning to me. And I think that all of those examples speak to why they need a shift in the message being communicated to them on a daily basis as they prepare for their next game. Because that's the only way out of this. It starts by beating Houston, and then you go from there. Then it'll be beating Baylor. But, like, everything you talked about preseason is out the window. You're not going to Arlington. This team isn't going to be better than last year's team. It's all gone. You're on, like, a week-to-week basis now. Can you win the next game in front of you and get to something semi-respectable by the end of the year, like a bowl game?
Can you get to a bowl game? That's the question. And that is not where I thought we would be in week 4. Thought we'd be rolling, strolling, controlling our way to a bowl game, but that is not the case. I have one more question for you, Kyle. Do you want to give any final thoughts to your drip rankings? Because Iowa State fans are big bad.
Yeah, we're not allowed to put Iowa State on there, are we?
Not all black, no.
I was going to say, I thought that was a rule from last year. You were like, we're never putting Iowa State in there if they wear all black.
No, it's not a school color.
Their fans, though, are telling me that it was a school color in 1891, 130 years ago.
Yeah, before they ever won a game.
I'm like, okay, so it was your school color, so what? It's not today.
Also, black and white would be hilarious school colors.
I could also design the Iowa State logo in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
No offense.
No offense.
Rob, do you feel like you mentioned like people tagging Joey McGuire under your tweets?
Yeah.
Do you feel like I have said anything in this podcast that is like a personal shot or derogatory toward any person, or do you feel like I've kept it to performance evaluation and like talking about actual football?
Yeah, I think we've talked about actual football today. I don't think we've said anybody's a bum or anything like that. No.
Did we call for anybody's job?
Not yet. No.
I think that's another like.
No, we haven't.
100%. Some fans cross the line and like so-and-so's a bum, so-and-so's a dumbass, fire this person, don't let him back on the plane. All of that, I think, is probably overboard. But I also think there's a fan that's like overly sensitive to any criticism of the actual game that was played and the state of the program, and they kind of like perceive it as more negative than it really is. But hey, hold us accountable. If you listen to this, you feel like something was out of pocket or unfair, let me know. Let Rob know if you think Rob said it. And if I think that you're wrong, we'll hash it out. Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to get here. Everybody's mad that we're 1-3. I don't want to get here after a loss and start calling people names. And I don't think that helps anything. But I do want to speak openly about what I think is good or bad that happened on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, and you are 1-3. And you can't go to 1-3 without having some negatives. And this is a podcast, and we're going to talk for 2 hours, and there's going to be some negatives on here. So if you don't like negatives, you might want to skip a week after a loss.
And Joey said after the first loss, like well before this 1-3 record piled up, he was like, "Hey, I see the fan stuff on social media. I get it, and I agree with most of it." Like, and that's where like some other fans, like of other schools, Texas is of course obsessed with us, but other fans have chimed in like, "Hey, your coach should have kept his mouth shut all off season." And I'm like, "Yeah, our fans would agree with you at this point."
Yeah,
like we don't love in hindsight the Big 12 championship talk or this team would beat the bowl team by 14 points talk. Like we agree with you. That set the bar too high, and through 4 games you didn't deliver on any of that. So like you're not going to get an argument here.
Yeah. I just in some ways don't understand why. I mean, everything that was said this offseason by us, by you and I, not the hype that the coaches put out there, not the Tyler Shucks getting a cigarette break because he's got so much time in the backfield talk from the offensive line coach. Just how old you are and how experienced you are and the returning production you had coming back. I just don't understand 1-3. It just doesn't compute in some ways. But that's where you are. And I don't know if Houston's must win. We'll talk about that on Wednesday, but there were a couple of questions about underperformance based on money and whatever. You have absolutely underperformed this season. And I would argue that you're the biggest underperformer in the Big 12 so far because Baylor didn't have expectations and you did.
Can I add a quick thought on that?
Yeah. We're already at 2 hours, so go ahead.
I think Baylor fans, for some reason, like I kind of get why TCU fans might have been upset at the Texas Tech hype among national media. Because they're like, hey, we just made the playoff. We won, or we were in the Big 12 title game last year. Yeah, we've got a lot to replace, but like, why are you putting Tech above us? Baylor and TCU is 3-1, by the way. Baylor is like mad that Tech got more hype than Baylor. Baylor's also 1-3 with worse losses than you have. And they're like trying to dunk on Tech for not living up to that. It's like, I mean, were y'all somehow more deserving of it by having a more disappointing season or like a worse season than Texas Tech to this point? Why are y'all complaining about Texas Tech being overhyped? Not that you're going to get like an argument that we were adequately hyped or something.
Deflection.
It's like, why are you upset at that?
It's a deflection. Did you see Dave Aranda stuck in the Baylor line?
Yeah.
How does that happen? Why was he not out there with the team? You have to take a dump or something?
I don't know. And it's hard to troll them with like you hired the wrong guy stuff when you're also 1-3, but like 100% sincerely, not trolling.
You miss Joey now?
Well, so one of them was like, they were diagnosing the problem kind of like what I said, that like there's no spark, there's no fire. And they're like, hey, that's not Aranda's personality. He's never going to be that guy. So who is that guy? It's like, well, if you need an Energizer bunny, like he's on the sideline in Lubbock and y'all had him, you had the chance to hire him. It's like, I know that they're not probably pining over Joey while Joey's 1-3. It's like, I mean, if that's Aranda's biggest problem is that there's no energy in the program, like I do know a guy who can solve that problem for you, but yeah, he's here now. And I'm glad he is. Again, I'm all in.
On Joey.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it? You want to go?
We might as well go one more minute so we can say we hit 2 hours. So do you have any final thoughts?
Excuse me. Just that I think you need a wake-up call. You have to have a gut check. You have to reach down and have the intestinal fortitude to say, we suck. How do we get better? And that starts at the top with Joey McGuire. Then it goes to the coordinators and Kitley and DeRuiter. And then it goes to the seniors and the players beneath them. Everybody needs to look at themselves in the mirror and just be better moving forward because you have some opportunities. The next 2 games are absolutely winnable games. Houston and Baylor and Waco. Those are the next 2?
Yep.
Those are absolutely winnable games. If you lose to Houston, tailspin. So I don't think that can happen. But again, it starts this week in practice. And we'll have to see who's playing quarterback, honestly. That's another thing I'm thinking about.
Not to look ahead. Let's say you win the next 2, and you're 2-1 in Big 12 play with wins over 2 of your in-state and conference rivals.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling about the season? We'd be 3-3 at that point.
Oh, way better. Way better. Bowl opportunities abound at 3-3.
You're saying like 500 the rest of the way out, we get to a bowl game.
Yeah.
And say, hey, this was disappointing, but we recuperated. I think you can do it, and you can also do it in a way that delivers a pretty significant blow to Baylor. Because Baylor goes to Orlando this week. They're 9-point underdogs, according to Circa. They're probably not going to win that game. Now, when you get them in Waco, Blake Shapen might be back, and I think he's probably pretty clearly their better quarterback. But did you see their stadium against Texas on Saturday?
Bring out the tarps.
If they lose in Orlando to get to 1-4, and then a bunch of red shows up in their stadium and they lose to us to get to 1-5, like, you think it's rough being a Tech fan right now, sitting here on Sunday after a 1-3 start? Now, you have to show up and beat them. Like, I'm not just assuming any of that with the current state that Texas Tech is in. But I've seen fans like kind of give up on this season. Like, I'm not going to Lubbock anymore. I'm selling my tickets. That Waco spot for a game that might be a 2-3 versus a 1-4 team, I'm still planning to go, and I'm planning to have a lot of fun because that could be like, not a game with Big 12 title implications, nothing like that. But you could strike a pretty serious blow to an in-state rival that has had your number over the last 10 or 12 years, and that would be fun. And so I hope that our fan base that loves to pat itself on the back for how big and crazy and energetic we are, if you live an hour and a half away in either DFW or Austin, show up in Waco and let's throw a knockout punch against Baylor in 2 weeks. That's my plea. And, hey, again,
can't look
I'm
at
not saying that there's a 100 not 100% chance that you beat Houston, not 100% chance you beat Baylor. But if you do find yourself there, could be fun. I plan to be there.
All right. Kyle will buy you a beer if you go to Waco. That's what he just said.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in the stadium.
Yeah, in the stadium. Because they don't sell beer. But.
I do. I'll do this. If we beat Houston and we're beating Baylor and like the game is in hand in the fourth quarter, I will intentionally get kicked out of the stadium and we'll have it recorded for content. Is that fair?
If you beat Houston and the Baylor game is in hand in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to get kicked out of Baylor Stadium, so I think we can get that done.
I mean, surely I can get a flask in my boots and then whip it out and they'll throw me out in like 2 seconds, right?
Yeah. Say a couple cuss words.
Gosh darn those Bears. Get that guy out of here. This is a family environment.
Yeah. All right. Well past 2 hours of us.
Yeah.
You know, my high school coach used to say, 12-minute quarters, 48 minutes. He wanted us to be 49ers. Don't just play 48 minutes. Play past the whistle. So maybe we need to be 61 minutes of us in the game. Be 49ers. Play through the whistle. You want to be an 18-yarder when you're running 20-yard sprints, Kyle? You want to be 49ers.
I don't think we need a different slogan or gimmick. I think we need no slogans, no gimmicks.
Just play.
I think,
ball, baby.
Hey, we play Houston on Saturday. Let's line up and beat them. And let's all work together to figure out how we're going to do that, coaches and players.
Let's do it.
All right, that's it. Love y'all.